The very first scene for Inception was the scene in which Mr. Scioto first hired Cobb while in a helicopter. Filming then moved to the United Kingdom, where specialty sets could be constructed to achieve the ambitious practical effects shots Nolan desired. The crew converted an airship hangar in Bedfordshire to a temporary studio to film scenes for Inception. The first specialty set that was constructed in this space was the setup for the spinning hotel corridor shot. Since Nolan wanted to achieve this spinning effect practically, the team had to develop a set that could rotate 360 degrees to create the effect that Nolan desired. Nolan wanted this rotating hotel corridor because of the spinning techniques used for the film 2001: A Space Odyssey, but Nolan wanted to take those classic concepts and push them further by having an action scene take place in a rotating corridor. Construction of the hotel corridor was run by a small team consisting of production designer Guy Hendricks Diaz, special effects supervisor Chris Corbould, and director of photography Wally Pfister. The corridor itself was originally only going to be 12 meters long, but it needed to be extended further to 30 meters long because the crew needed extra space for the characters to move with how elaborate the hotel action scene had become. The rotating effect was achieved by suspending the corridor along 8 large rings on the outside of the walls that would be powered by motors. These motors could then be used to make the corridor rotate in whatever way was necessary to achieve the action shots needed. Filming this hotel sequence took the team a decent amount of time to film because of how difficult it was to make the action work well while the set was rotating. Actor Joseph Gordon-Levitt had decided that he would do as many stunts as he could for himself, rather than relying on a stunt double to do the stunts for him. Unfortunately for Levitt, this meant he would end up spending extended amounts of time in the suspended rotating corridor to practice and film his action scenes to ensure that they could be completed to Nolan's requirements. It ended up taking Levitt multiple weeks to learn how to act and fight properly in this corridor, which he referred to as a giant hamster wheel. Even though Nolan was making Levitt use this contraption frequently, he still had sympathy for Levitt. As he stated, it was like some incredible torture device. We thrashed Joseph for weeks, but in the end, we looked at the footage, and it looks unlike anything any of us had ever seen before. The rhythm of it is unique, and when you watch it, even if you know how it was done, it confuses your perceptions. It's unsettling in a wonderful way. Another strange set that the team worked to build was the set for the bar sequence. Since this scene was going to include a sequence where the world would tilt slightly, the crew decided that they would build a tilting platform to achieve this effect in camera. To do this, the entire bar set had to be constructed up on a platform that was engineered to be able to tilt 25 degrees. To maintain the stability of the shot, the cameras were also bolted to the platform itself, so that only certain parts of the frame would be affected. Finding extras for this sequence was very difficult, since Nolan did not want the characters in the back to be reacting to how things were shifting. As a result, part of the audition process for extras was that they were required to sit on the set as it would tilt, and if they reacted in any noticeable way, they would not be allowed to be an extra on this set piece. Extras that were able to maintain their composure while everything became unstable were able to be a part of the sequence, and the shot was completed successfully. Once the teams had finally been able to get the shots they needed from these sequences, they moved production over to University College London on July 15th of 2009, where they filmed the sequence that, in the film, takes place inside the College of Architecture. After production was finished with this location, they then moved on to France. The most notable sequence shot in France was the scene with the bistro inside a dream where everything starts to explode and fall apart. Since Nolan was intent on using as many practical effects as possible for the film, rather than adding effects digitally in post, he decided that he wanted to have real explosives set up in the bistro to create this effect. Local authorities, however, did not like the idea of using real explosives in this public area, so the team decided to instead use high-pressure nitrogen to create the effect of a series of explosions while not setting off any actual explosions. Even with the use of high-pressure nitrogen instead of explosives, the team still had only one chance to get this shot right, since it involved hours of setting up the shot and would take just as much time to clean up after the shot had been recorded. The team could not afford to have to redo this shot multiple times. Because of this, the crew set up 6 high-speed cameras to capture the explosion from many different angles, allowing the team to feel confident that they would have multiple adequate shots that could be used in the final film. Even though this effect was done practically, it still did end up needing some computer-generated visuals to touch up the shot and better sell the idea that this was a real explosion taking place in the film. While the explosion in the bistro was partially real, the folding of the city in this area was obviously not real. These kinds of extravagant effects would have to be created later using green screen and CGI, since there was not really a way to wrap up the structure of the world this way convincingly without the aid of computer graphics. Once filming had concluded in France, the team then moved on to Morocco, which was used for some shots in the Limbo area, but mostly Morocco was used as the area Mombasa in the film, the area where this chase scene takes place. Since not much of the film takes place here, the team did not spend too much time filming in this location, and they were soon back on their way to Los Angeles, California, specifically at the Warner Brothers Studios soundstage. Finally being able to spend a large amount of time on a professional film soundstage gave the team the time and resources necessary to construct some of the more complicated internal and external sets. One such set was the set for the Japanese castle, which took inspiration from a mixture of both Japanese and Western cultures, with the dining room of the castle specifically being inspired by Naijo Castle, which was first built in the year 1603. In addition to building the interior of this castle, the team built scale models of another building, the fortress at the end of the film. Once again, Nolan wanted to achieve the explosion effect using as many practical effects as possible. The crew therefore constructed an entire scale model of the building, and then set up explosives under it to blow up the model. Other scenes were shot in Los Angeles outside of the Warner Brothers studio, most notably the car chase sequence that takes place during the dream heist. There were many fantastical elements for this chase, such as a car being thrown into a river and a train rolling down the street. Rather than just creating these shots with computer graphics later on in production, Nolan wanted to ensure the realism of these shots by once again using mostly practical effects. To create the freight train that drove down the middle of the street, the crew took the base form of a trailer and then created molds for different train parts to cover the trailer. The molds were made from fiberglass and were designed to look as real as possible when they were placed onto the trailer. Another way in which the crew used practical effects to sell the realism of these fantastical dream sequences was with the rain for the scene. This entire chase scene was supposed to take place in the rain, which was a difficult thing to achieve with the film being shot in Los Angeles, California, an area that does not typically receive much rain. The crew chose to solve this problem by splitting up water cannons on the rooftops of nearby buildings. They would then shoot this water at the cars in the scene and the area where shooting was taking place in general. After filming was complete, these scenes were touched up in post-production to better sell the idea that it was actually raining. While these practical effects are impressive, they were still fairly simple compared to the most complicated effect needed for this scene, the car falling into the river. First, this shot was going to require a complex setup to ensure that the car would fly off the bridge at the right speed and angle to make it look like the car was carrying the velocity from the chase the audience had seen taking place up until this moment. To achieve this, the crew constructed a cannon for the car to be shot out of towards the river, giving the car the speed necessary to sell the effect. However, Nolan did not want to stop at just having the car physically fly off the bridge. He wanted all the actors that were in the car in the shot to physically be in the car as it was shot out of a cannon and fell into the river. Obviously, doing something like this was going to require a large amount of preparation to ensure the safety of the actors and crew that would be doing the stunt. Getting the shot of the actors suspended in the air in slow motion ended up taking a whole day to get the shot ready, especially since the actors were going to need a plan of action for once they hit the water of the river. All of these actors were given scuba tanks to breathe out of so that they would not drown in the water, and once the car hit the water, each of the actors were told to remain calm while they proceeded to stay in the van under the water for 5 whole minutes. Keeping calm while being submerged underwater and being able to act at the same time was a very difficult task for the team to accomplish. As actor Cillian Murphy said, "And when they ask you to act, it's a bit of a task." Overall, the sequence of shots for the car driving off the bridge and flying into the river was shot on and off over a series of months. With these shots being prepared, shooting moved on to filming some other locations, such as Cobb's house, which was filmed in Pasadena, California. The hotel lobby was filmed in the CAA building in Century City, while the rest of the on-location shots for Limbo were shot on location at the beach in Los Angeles. With most of the film being complete, the team could move on to the final stage of principal photography, which was focused on filming the sequence on the mountain at the end of the film. This set of filming took place in Alberta, Canada, at the ski resort Fortress Mountain in November 2009. When the team first arrived at the filming location, there was not much snow around, which presented a problem since they were hoping to rely on the real-life snow to be the snow used for the film. While it was disappointing that there was no snow on the ground, the team still had a schedule to follow, so they set forth and made preparations for filming to begin as planned. Before the full crew had arrived in Canada, a smaller crew had been sent 3 months earlier to construct an elaborate fortress set for the film. The other main preparation that had to be done after the team arrived was creating snow for the ground. Since there was not enough snow for what the team had planned on the ground, the team created a batch of fake snow that they would have placed around the areas where shooting was to take place, and the shots would have been cleaned up and given more snow using computer graphics later on. Luckily for the crew, however, right before filming was set to begin, a blizzard set in, and this wasn't just any blizzard. In fact, it was one of the largest blizzards the area had seen in a decade, which was perfect for the visuals of the film. However, this did present some issues with the filming location now being much colder than the team had expected, which was unpleasant for much of the cast and crew. The blizzard also presented issues because of the wind in the area. The wind was inconsistent and would blow at different intervals, thus creating some shots with heavy wind and other shots where everything would look still and calm. This would confuse the audience, so the crew had to come up with another idea to fix this problem. Their solution was to take the helicopters they had with them and bring them down towards where filming was taking place to blow snow towards the actors and set, making the wind much more consistent than it would have been. With this snow being real, the team could also accomplish another practical effect that they had been wanting to achieve in camera. Some of the avalanches that appeared in the film were real avalanches, set off by the film crew. Professional avalanche makers were recruited, and whenever an avalanche was needed for the shot, the avalanche makers would be flown up to the top of a mountain, where they would then drop timed explosives that would be set to detonate and trigger an avalanche when necessary for filming.